Good morning. Thank you all for getting up early after the dream experience last night. I trust everybody enjoyed the venue, and we will start today's festivities. Yesterday we tried to show a video for Todd Schleckley with Nate. We finally got the bugs kinked out, so I'd like to share that with you first, and then we'll start our programming.
It's no secret that the need for these things continues to rise. And with bigger call volumes and a bigger need for data, we need more antennas. We'll talk about the growth of small cells next. Small cells are one more way wireless carriers are getting their signal into crowded areas where you just can't put up a traditional tower-based macro cell. And today I'm with Justin Dillon. Justin, so for climbers, small cell still involves some antenna installation, albeit in an area much closer to the ground.
Exactly right. You may see small cells located on utility poles, buildings, billboards. We've installed them on steeples. Small cells pretty much go anywhere.
It's a lot different than being way up on a tower, right? But you still have to keep a keen eye on safety.
That's right, Ryan. There's actually a lot to keep in mind. A lot of times you're in urban areas, so there's a lot more pedestrians, there's auto traffic, there's your standard fall prevention safety that you put into place. And because we often use man lifts for small cell work, you also have to watch for power lines and electrical hazards. There are several pieces of equipment such as transformers that could be energized, so you have to be aware of them at all times.
Let's talk about RF exposure. Just because it's called small cell doesn't mean you're out of the woods as far as possible RF exposure, right?
In addition to your electrical and traffic hazards, wireless antennas emit RF energy during normal operation. Therefore, crews installing these need to know the FCC guidelines and protect themselves at all times.
It's not like you're 300 feet in the air like you are on a traditional tower, so let's talk about fall protection.
You still have to take all the standard fall precautions. Know your surroundings and look for protection anchors on the site. More often than not, you'll be working from a man lift or bucket truck. But remember that fall protection is still needed when working at heights, even in those machines.
Small cells, they're everywhere with more on the way. Remember, watch for traffic, electrical hazards, RF exposure, and be sure to use fall protection. And as always, stay safe, my friend.
Todd couldn't be here today because he had a commitment in Charlotte, but want to do that for him. So thanks for being here. This is Wednesday. Appreciate everything. I don't know what date it is, but I know what day it is. But appreciate y'all getting up and enjoying the breakfast. And our first presenter will be from WIA, and Blair Bodie, who's the secretary of the Tennessee Wireless Association and my co-manager for the South Wireless Summit, will come up and introduce her and conduct the program. Thank you.
I think Steve had a late night last night.
10:30.
Hopefully no one noticed.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. My name is Blair Crawford, and I'm the Director of National Accounts at Vertical Bridge, and we are the largest owner and manager of communication infrastructure in the U.S.
And I'm Kimberly Curley, the Director of Workforce Development at WIA, and this is our topic today, really talking about the importance of workforce development, training, and education throughout the wireless industry.
Great. So Kimberly, let's start with the Wireless Infrastructure Association. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. So the Wireless Infrastructure Association, as most of you know, is WIA. And we represent, the carriers, the the companies that really develop, build, and own infrastructure here in the United States for wireless networks. Our members, our job is to really support our members in the growth in the wireless industry so that infrastructure can proceed and move forward. Some interesting facts about WIA is that we were formed in 1949, so we've been around for quite a long time. In 1995, the association had rebranded to PCIA. Some of you may know that. I just wanted to include this because I found it interesting that some people weren't sure of what that rebranding was, because now we are known as the Wireless Infrastructure Association. But PCIA was formed as a personal communications industry association to really best benefit personal communications infrastructure. But the industry has grown and it has shifted towards wireless, and our member base has grown also to include members of the wireless industry. So that's why we went through the rebranding. In 2016, we had announced at the PCIA show, which was the Wireless Infrastructure Show, that we were rebranding to WIA to really just best represent the industry.
Great. So when you rebranded, did that change what the association does?
In some ways, I think our core values have remained the same, but one of the things that we had recognized within the industry at that time was that all indications, the projections were telling us that the demand for mobile data would increase sixfold by 2020. So those numbers are pretty staggering, and we felt that, can everybody hear me now? It's that old Verizon commercial, right? Can you hear me now? Our challenge is really to meet the demand for the wireless industry, make sure that that infrastructure can move forward. We're really working hard in Washington to make sure that the regulators understand our needs within the industry so that the advancements aren't slowed down, so that we can deploy the wireless infrastructure in a cost-effective way. And we're really leading the fight to ensure the U.S. is a leader in 5G. And I just realized
Slides.
the clicker. Do we have a clicker? Excuse me 1 second, everyone.
I'm sorry.
Here it is. Another little glitch. Okay. Good thing I had highlighted my notes here. That's who we are. I've already told you guys this, so we'll move forward. So here, as you'll see, is our influence at work. Every part of our organization is focused on improving the business climate for the wireless ecosystem. We cultivate relationships with leaders through multiple industry sectors that really rely on wireless communications, strengthening the industry voice, bolstering our efforts to deploy and expand wireless infrastructure across the United States through state and federal regulations, removing regulatory barriers to 5G, and through frequency coordination.
So WIA also supports the growth of wireless infrastructure through industry events, and specifically, as we all know, the Connectivity Expo. Can you tell us a bit more about how this show has evolved over the years?
Absolutely. So when we had rebranded to WIA, in seeing the growth of the industry, we had also changed the show. So the show has changed from, it's really a culmination of WIS and HetNet Expo. And that change really was to make sure that since we're in this new world of wireless where infrastructure really meets everything. So if you think about it, that is Connectivity Expo. We are connecting everything that matters in this industry, from traditional macro towers that really are at the center of that connectivity to the Internet of Everything and beyond. So that's what this show represents. We had our inaugural show last year in Charlotte. And this year we're going to be in Orlando, May 20th through 23rd. I hope we're going to see everyone there. It is a great show, and we've expanded it this year, and I think you'll really enjoy. So I hope to see everyone there.
Great. So it sounds like WIA has an enormous impact on wireless infrastructure growth and deployment. Mm-hmm. Can you share with the group here what else WIA supports both its members and the industry at large?
Sure, absolutely. We're really leading the marketplace for identifying, important key initiatives throughout the industry. Various initiatives, but primarily the importance that we are finding right now is through education and training. And we are the national sponsor of TIRAP. I'm sure most of you are familiar with that acronym, the Telecommunications Industry Registered Apprenticeship Program, which is a culmination of industry associations, U.S. Department of Labor, and they develop DOL credentialed apprenticeship programs that are available for qualified workers for the training and career development. Their mission through TIRAP is to partner with stakeholders to promote safety within the industry, enhance quality, and enable greater education for workers. In addition to TIRAP, we have also launched the Telecommunications Education Center, which is also known as TEC, TEC. I hope most of you are familiar with this. This is new. The importance with TEC, the program is a learning program. We have an online portal, and it's really devoted to improving education, training, quality of work, safety, same as TIRAP. But this is through an actual educational training program. It was developed with significant significant contributions from academia, subject matter experts, our members, indicating what was important for education within the wireless industry for us to create the programs that would support that need. It's interesting because I listened to Jay Brown yesterday, and he had mentioned, I think someone had asked a specific question about training and education, and Jay said, we need training and education in this industry. And I was kind of silently standing back there going, yay, because we're doing this. We are doing this. And this was launched in 2017. It was announced at our show in 2017. And it's the first initiative of its kind. And nobody else is doing this kind of targeted programming. I'm going to show you here. This is a screenshot of our portal. So the portal is where a student will go into our system. They're able to register for courses, access their curriculum, course materials. We have resources available for every course. And when a student completes a course, they are expected to take a quiz. And this is just like regular school. You have to successfully pass that quiz in order to receive your certificate of completion. And the importance of the portal is that for that student to have those resources available to them is critical so that they can go back and refer to things. Typically if a student is new to the industry, they're going to sit into a class and there's an amount of information that they're going to absorb. Typically then they get out into the field and they're doing some work. It starts to then cause them to remember something they may have learned. This way they can go back and reference in the system. It's also important for the employers. So for a student supervisor, or perhaps it's through the Human Resources Department, that they can go into the system and track the progress of all of their students. What we do is we typically partner with most of the organizations in the industry to ensure that we've got training programs built out on an annual basis, so we are meeting the needs of the entire workforce. So this I think is very important, because if I'm a manager, a supervisor of a team, I want to see how well they're doing. What courses did they take? How successful were they? And are they active within the portal? And so it's really important that our employers partner with our students to ensure that's kind of success. As you'll see here, these are specific badges for the courses, and what I wanted to share with you is that the courses that we have created were designed to ensure education across really every job type. We have prerequisite and fundamental courses which provide basic educational training, the foundation of knowledge. And it's interesting because as we've gone out and trained, I've had people come into fundamental courses who had that kind of, I don't need this, I've been doing this for how many years. And I would watch them go through these courses, and you see a light bulb click on, and they get it, that there are some things that, although they've been doing this work for years, technology changes. Things change. There are still things that people need to learn. And those are the students particularly who will come to us afterwards and say, thank you, because you have things here that I wasn't even aware of. So if people have been in the industry for years and they're doing going about their business a certain way, sometimes it's wrong because it's evolved. So that's why reskilling existing workforce, the employees, is important, as well as bringing in new employees. So just to give you a little bit more of an idea, prerequisite and fundamental courses, DAS and small cells, this is a big topic that we're coming into. We're doing a lot of build-outs with DAS and small cells, so we do have a number of courses in that arena, including 6 courses that are devoted specifically to in-building. And that would be basics, project management, RF sources, distribution and technologies, and site surveys. That's a suite of courses just for in-building. Wi-Fi, macro sites, line sweeping and PIM testing, wireless site safety, RF awareness and safety, edge computing and site development. And we continue to grow and ensure that the industry has the programs and the courses that they need to sufficiently do the jobs.
So Kimberly, this brings us, I guess, to the point of this session today, which is workforce development in the wireless industry. Why do you think workforce development is so important and also so critical at this point in our industry today?
I think this image really states why. We are looking at a significant skills gap within the industry. It's critical for us to ensure that we've got the education and the programming available so that the industry can move forward. One of the major issues is keeping people trained, educated, and safe. That's a well-known fact. Analysts report that there's a significant gap between the people that we need, this is our workforce, and the skills. You can have people, but do they have the skills that they need to do the jobs? So this is the balance here, and we're walking a very fine line. So there's the pressure that we're seeing on companies in the industry is that ever-increasing demand for more communications infrastructure, right? So we want to meet that demand. Us to be able to build out that infrastructure is going to require a skilled workforce. Our collective goal is to really improve those career development opportunities and to ensure pathways for success for all employees at all various levels. We need the workers. We need the workers. And I'll get to some more stats in a few minutes that will really show the impact.
So we hear all about what's driving the need for 5G, the impact of 5G, carrier investments. We hear about what we need to do. But it sounds like the sea change expected from the deployment of 5G networks can only happen if we have a sufficiently skilled labor workforce that's trained to plan, design, install, and monitor the networks.
Yeah, exactly. What we're hearing at industry events like this, and I've been to these over the years, and I would kind of sit silently and observing, we hear about what's driving this, right? We're all trying to get towards 5G. We hear about technologies. We hear about infrastructure, what's needed to deploy. We hear about regulatory issues. We're missing the elephant in the room, okay? That elephant is, how are we gonna do that if we don't have the workforce available to build it? That's what we need to do. We've got to get from point A, talking about, here's where we're headed, right? We're here to build out 5G. We need to talk more about how we're going to get there to get it done. We can't do that without the people in place to do these jobs. This dramatic skills gap between the US and the technical professional skills that are needed to build this out, they really, they're putting us at risk, and this could seriously slow progress. Us at WIA, this is what's critical to us, is making sure that we are meeting the demand, we are meeting the needs, and we're doing it in a timely way, in a cost-effective way, and that we're not going to lose time so that the US can be the leader in 5G. With thousands of jobs that go unfulfilled, the industry is really facing a labor crisis, and it's increasing our labor costs. I hope you'll join Carrie Charles later this morning. She's going to be talking more about some of those issues. And also Carrie and I are going to be at Wireless Connect in April discussing this a little bit more, where we're able to bridge the gap between what Carrie does, staffing and trying to fill those jobs, and what are the challenges in doing so. And what the solution is training and education. And that's why we at WIA have created this program, to ensure that we've got the skilled workforce.
So I understand that the ITC released a white paper last year about preparing a skilled workforce for future wireless networks. Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. This was a very important paper. It was authored by Ray Hild and Kurt Jacobs of JMA, Nate Fuentes of CommScope, Matthew DeGino of Crown Castle, and Dr. Ricken Thacker, who's the co-founder of RF Academics and a professor at the University of Maryland, College Park. Our ongoing conversations with industry employers, as well as the work that was done by ITC, has uncovered more information about the skills gap. So what we're seeing is the transition to 5G could result in $275 billion in network investment. That's awesome, right? 3 million new jobs, though, are going to be needed in the US. 850,000 of those jobs directly in telecom. Okay, so that 3 million number, just so you understand, is the changes in jobs that are going to happen as a result of 5G. So there's new ways of doing business, and it's going to open up more jobs as a result of automation and such. But to actually build it out, that gap is 850,000 jobs. $500 billion added to the GDP. This is significant. So as standards are being set for 5G, it's definitely apparent that there's some major shifts in deploying the new technology, requiring that new skill set. And that skill set is really to address the new network, the new radio network, the core network, backhaul techniques, densification efforts, and new spectrum that's brought to market. With the report, specifically, they had identified what is really needed in training and education. That's RF principles and fundamentals, critical. Spectrum, we're hearing more about more spectrum being released. We need to understand that. Our workers need to understand it. LTE and LTE advanced, small cells and frequency use or reuse, concept of densification, NFV, SDN, CRAN, and cell virtualization and basic connectivity requirements for IoT. These are all important topics. So employers are really urged to start educating employees in these key technical areas of the radio network. Success has to be done in the field, coupled with classroom training. I come from a background in marketing, graphic design, PR, this rainbow world that I went to school for many years ago. And as with most of us in our careers, we find ourselves going in a different direction. So I fell into this industry at a time in my life when I needed a job. And I was working on a project for T-Mobile. I started as a permit expediter. And nobody taught me how to do this. Basically, my desk was piled with stacks of construction drawings, and I was told, go get the permit. Okay, I'm gonna learn how to do this.
Figure it out.
Figure it out, right? And I think everybody I talk to has learned the same way. So, my career path grew from being that permit expediter to then doing site development, to then managing leasing for our carriers, and then managing our vendors. So I've really done all of that, but I had to learn my own way, and I assure you I made mistakes. But as I learned, I was really pushing the need for education and training. We can't afford mistakes on the job any longer, especially if it's going to impede our progress forward and result in safety issues for our workers. I kind of segued off. I went off in a little direction there. But so to bring it back in, the wireless industry and multiple federal agencies really recognize the critical role for the need for apprenticeship and workforce development programs that are really key to bridging this skills gap. November of 2017, FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr had spoke at the U.S. Department of Labor's workshop on apprenticeship and workforce development. And I bring this up because, the FCC is a critical partner for all of us. And they are adopting the policies that spur greater private sector advancements in 5G and other advanced networks. Commissioner Carr had brought up a very important question at that meeting. He asked specifically, do we have the skilled workforce in place that can deploy the massive amounts of additional broadband infrastructure that's necessary to meet demand? He said we need to make sure that the industry has access to skilled workers that are needed to get this transition to the next generation networks across the finish line. And he's right. He also had applauded WIA for the work that we do through apprenticeship, as well as for the Telecommunications Education Center in ensuring that we have a skilled and educated workforce.
So Kimberly, I think it's clear that workforce development is critical, but are there additional evidence supporting the skills gap that you keep mentioning?
Plenty. And this is where it gets fun. So forgive me, I'm really going to be reading my notes here to make sure that I get these numbers correct. In 2017, Accenture they did a report called Smart Cities, how 5G can help municipalities become vibrant smart cities. The report states that an estimated $275 billion of infrastructure spending, that of that $275 billion, $93 billion is anticipated to be spent on construction alone, with the remainder being allocated to network equipment, engineering, and planning. The report estimates that approximately 50,000 new construction jobs will be created every year over the 7-year build-out. It's pretty staggering. When we consider those effects on suppliers and other partners, their spending on the economy, the full impact from construction spending alone could be approximately 120,000 jobs created each year over that 7-year period. So it's increased. Korn Ferry in 2018 also released a very significant report called The Future of Work, the Global Talent Crunch. So this report examines the gap between our future labor supply and demand. In a nutshell, if you were to read this report, what they're basically saying is time is running out. And that's a really important statement. I know a lot of people sometimes are aware of things that need to be done, but are reticent to kind of jump on board too soon. Please don't do that. Time definitely is running out, and now is the time to ensure that your workforce is properly educated and trained. So when we look at these numbers, the numbers tell us that by 2030, the demand for skilled workers will outstrip supply, resulting in a global talent shortage of more than 85.2 million people. Signs are already emerging that within 2 years from now, there will not be enough talent to go around. If this is left unchecked, the financial impact on the talent shortage could reach $8.452 trillion in unrealized revenue by 2030. That number is actually equivalent to the GDP of Germany and Japan. The United States alone could miss out on $1.748 trillion in revenue due to labor shortages. That's roughly 6% of our entire economy. The report had also indicated that the business implications are clear. Government and organizations need to seriously consider how to educate, train, and upskill their existing workforce. They must act now to mitigate the talent crunch, making people, their development, the recruitment, and compensation top priority in order to sustain growth. There's even more. So when we dig into this a little bit deeper, a lot of stuff. So going a little bit further, Korn Ferry's report, HR Magazine, as well as IBM had contributed to this topic. The United States is facing one of the most alarming talent crunches of any country in Korn Ferry's study. Okay, that's alarming. And it's really due to the American's population that is graying. Okay, I'm blonde, I'm not showing too much of the gray yet, although I assure you it's there. We are graying rapidly, this population. 10,000 baby boomers are reaching retirement age every day, and that will continue over the next 19 years. So think about it if you heard Jay Brown talk yesterday. Jay mentioned in his keynote 75% of Crown Castle's workforce is above that median working age, and they're going to be retiring out. 75% of that workforce. So if you don't have a succession plan in place, you've got problems, because who's going to fill those shoes? Who's going to do that work? So we need to not only train our workforce, we have to have significant succession plans in place to ensure that those who are moving up are prepared to be the leaders of our organizations and prepared to take over. You know, we have to kind of stop talking about the baby boomers versus the millennials. Let's work together and ensure that our organizations are structured properly and are prepared to continue to grow and meet the demand. U.S. job vacancies, okay, we have hit really the vacancies, have hit an all-time high, exceeding 6 million openings per month. Analysts had attributed the nation's hiring crunch to a tight labor market and scarcity of workers with the right skills and experience. So as the demand rises, supply is declining, right? And labor force participation rate is expected to fall over the next decade, dipping from 62% in 2020 to 60% by 2030. I know it's a 2% number, but it actually is very significant, and we need to pay attention to this and prepare, because 2030, I know it might sound like a long time away. I don't want to imagine how old I'm going to be, but it's not that far away. The time is now to start preparing. I also wanted to talk about turnover, and most of your HR departments, if you are leaders of your organizations, turnover is a very important topic that you need to have for your organization. Average cost of employee turnover is 213% of their one-year salary. We're looking at employees who are not getting the training that they need. If they don't feel that they are being supported by the organizations, they are 12 times more likely to leave their companies. So that's why turnover is a critical topic. So proper onboarding, professional development programs, training, you have to have a strategy in place right now to ensure that. Another statistic I want to throw out here, HR Magazine had said that companies who invest $15,000 on training per employee can see an average of 24% more profit than companies who invest less. That's not a lot of money. That's $1,500 per employee for their training, and yet look at your return on that investment. It's very significant.
So Kimberly, those statistics are astounding. What are your thoughts about how organizations should approach workforce development?
I think sometimes that's a challenge for most organizations because they don't have the bandwidth, perhaps, to institute internal training programs. Perhaps they're not sure how to structure onboarding, professional development. I would urge you to really look at that now and ensure that you've got some sort of strategy in place. It's a big job, and you really need to have a team devoted to this to ensure that your employees are getting that proper training, because that's where you're going to see the return on your investment. You know, keep your employees, keep them trained, don't lose them, otherwise you're losing a lot of money.
What do you recommend for organizations to get ahead of the skills gap?
Well, oops. Here's just a little levity. I like this slide, and I have used this in the past for some of my teams. The point here is that if you are not providing training, this is what you're doing, okay? Your teams are not working effectively, efficiently, proficiently. Look at them. I mean, they're struggling to like pull this cart. Put the wheels on the cart. If you do that, you provide the education and training, I assure you that your employees are able to do their jobs well. They're going to do it quickly. They're going to do it within timelines and budgets, and you're going to see that on your bottom line. One thing that I also wanted to ask, and this is, I actually want to see a show of hands here. So how many of you are fans of sports, professional sports? Okay. Do our professional sports teams train? They do. Would you follow them if they don't? Nope. How many of you are sports parents or have been? Or any other school extracurricular activity? Your children are involved in dance or arts, music, something. How many times per week are you driving your children around to get to their practices? I'm an ex-hockey mom. I know all about that. There's a fan. So my point here is we expect that of our children. We expect that of our favorite teams, and they train. Why aren't we doing it in our businesses? Why are we saying, but gee, it costs too much? I think that we need to rethink how we're doing business and ensuring that our workforces, every job type, understands what they're doing so that they can do their jobs well. Let's see if I forgot something here. Okay.
So I guess what would you say the takeaway is today for those that are in organizations, run organizations? What should they take away with today and what should they do?
Call me. Call me before it's too late. Really, I mean, I could talk for days on this topic. There's so much. I mean, this was a bit of a challenge trying to crunch these kind of statistics and this information into a very brief session. So I would be happy to talk to any of you about the importance of workforce development for your organizations. It's a challenge, it's a struggle, but what we are providing through the Telecommunications Education Center, being so specific to our industry, we can support and help you. And if it's something that we can't, if it's a course that perhaps we don't even have on our curriculum, we'll create it. That's what we're here to do, is to ensure that the workforce has the proper education and training that they need. We really, you know, when I think about the number of things that WIA does, we have a significant presence on Capitol Hill discussing regulatory matters. We have these relationships with industry leaders, with the federal government. We're working at state and local levels to ensure that we are able to proceed forward in the industry. But, you know, us now making sure that we are addressing this topic of workforce development is critical. So we're not just talking, we're not just writing papers about these topics, we are doing something very real and tangible about these issues. The courses that we have developed, actually, I hope you'll join us. Dr. Ricken Thacker, who's sitting here with us today, who is with RF Academics, he's one of our subject matter experts. He's developed a number of our courses. He's actually worked in the field for years. He's highly educated, works as a professor at University of Maryland, and he will be here today training a course on 5G outlook and 5G technologies. So if you'd like to get a taste of our type of programming, this is an excellent course which will guide you through an understanding of what are the drivers. What are the drivers that are getting us here, where we're at now? How are we understanding, you know, what are the releases, right? 3GPP has set the standards. What are those standards? How do we understand them? What's happening with the releases? And what are the technologies, and how do we move forward? So it's a very excellent course. If you can't join us today, give me a call, because we do plan to hold other courses at other events. We're going to be at ConnectX in May, holding a course there, but we also bring our training. Our training, just so you know, I don't think I mentioned this, the delivery methods, we really do prefer bringing our instructors directly to your organization and sitting in front of your workforce. That's where the benefit is. We all know what it's like to sit on a webinar, or if you're dialed in to a meeting or something. I'm sorry, but how engaged are you? Or are you sitting there doing something else? right? We all do it. It's human nature. We don't want that for our students. I'm not saying that we don't host web-based training, because we do, but I do encourage our employers to make sure that you have an instructor face-to-face with your workforce. It's a much more engaged experience. The transfer of knowledge it's tenfold. You know, the students are engaged, they're able to ask questions of a professor, get the answers, and get the help that they need. We also have e-learning. We're starting to now convert some of our courses to e-learning. That kind of speeds up progress. For example, we have a course on Wireless 101, which is a prerequisite for all students before they go into additional courses. The importance of us transferring that kind of content. We still do it live. We can do it via webinar, but e-learning will help organizations. If you've got 300 plus employees that need to be trained, we want to get them going through their Wireless 101 training. They can do it online and then come into the face-to-face training with our professors. So as you can see, I mean, we've really invested a great deal in tech. And we're only scratching the surface right now. I'm excited about where we're headed. I think that we have a tremendous program, and we have listened to the industry about what are the needs, what are the training needs, what are the job types, how do we create the proper support for this workforce. But we still have a ways to go. And it's with everyone here in this industry collectively who come together and work together on this and work with us. I mean, we're always open to suggestions that say, hey, here's where we need training. We need training in this specific area. How can you guide us and help? We want to be that vehicle towards the growth in this industry. I had one other quick quote. I love quotes, by the way. So you all hear this, and you see it on LinkedIn. I see it all the time. So CFO or the CEO asks, what if we train our employees and they leave? CFO says, what if we train them and they stay? When you train, they really will stay. Okay, here's the other thing. How many of you know that within this industry, most organizations are poaching employees from other companies? No more. No more. It's not going to happen, because the problem is we don't have enough employees. So we can't do that little merry-go-round anymore. There's not people sitting on the sidelines waiting to get plucked. So we have to all take responsibility within our own organizations to make sure our workforce is trained. And I assure you, what we know from many of the organizations that we work with and provide training, they've got some really happy employees, because these employees know that their employers are invested in them, invested in their professional development and growth. They don't want to go anywhere, so you're not going to be able to pluck them. What you're going to need to do, though, is go out there, and we need to find people with transferable skills so that we can train them. And really, I think looking at these significant skills gaps, we need to even take it down other levels. We're frankly going to have to get down to the high school level. There aren't any more trade schools out there. When I was growing up, kids went to Votech. It was the cool thing to do. You went and you learned a trade. What's happened over the past 20 years, parents said to their kids, go to college. I want you to learn business, be a doctor, be this, be that. So the trade schools kind of fizzled. I'm not saying that we don't have, kids who are going into trades, but they weren't seen as these glamorous occupations. We need to get back to the trades. We need to ensure that people have these skills. So we will be working over the next several years to ensure that through apprenticeship, through educational institutions, that we are providing a pool of skilled and qualified workers so that you have the workforce that you need to move forward in your organizations.
Great.
Did I run over time?
A bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. You
No,
should
we're
have.
good. Well, thank you, Kimberly, so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.